Most real estate agents are losing buyers they should be keeping. Not because the buyer wasn't interested, not because they found a better agent, because the agent never ran a real buyer consultation. They jumped straight to showing homes before they had a committed buyer, before they had a signed agreement, before the buyer even fully understood the process. And then they were surprised when that buyer bought with someone else. Here's what I know after years of working with buyers and training agents on my team. The buyer consultation is not a formality. It is not a box to check before you start showing homes. It is the single most important conversation you will have with a buyer. And how you run it determines whether that buyer becomes your client or someone else's. Today I'm going to walk you through the exact 4-stage buyer consultation system I use. The same system I teach every agent on my team, including the bonus step at the end that most agents never think about. But in this video, you will have a complete word-for-word framework you can run with your very next buyer. My name is Scott Kumler. I'm a real estate team leader based in Arizona. Let's get into it. Before I walk you through the 4 stages, I want to explain why this conversation matters so much. Because I know some agents are thinking, Scott, I already do a consultation. I meet with buyers before we start looking. And what I want to challenge you is not whether you meet with buyers, but what that meeting actually accomplishes. A buyer consultation done right accomplishes 4 very specific things. It builds trust, it educates, it communicates your value, and it gets a commitment. If your current consultation is not doing all 4 of those things, you are leaving deals on the table. And here's why this matters more now than it ever has before. After the NAR settlement, buyers are now required to sign a buyer broker agreement before an agent can even show them a home. That means getting a buyer committed to working with you exclusively is no longer just a practice. It is a necessary part of doing business. And the agents who have a strong, structured buyer consultation, who knows how to build trust, educate, communicate value, and ask for the commitment, are the agents who are going to win in this environment. The agents who wing it, who skip the consultation or run it poorly, are going to lose buyers before they ever get a showing. So let me show you exactly how to do it right. The first stage of my buyer consultation, and the one that sets the entire tone of the relationship, is what I call the dream home form. And I want to explain why I call it that, because the name matters. Most buyer meetings start with logistics. How much can you spend? How many bedrooms? What zip codes? Those are important questions, but they are not where I start. I start with the dream. Before I ask a single practical question, I want to know what this buyer is actually hoping for. Not just what they need, what they want. What they've been picturing. What does their ideal home feel like when they walk in the door? What does the neighborhood look like? What does the backyard look like? What does life in the home look like for their family? I start there because it immediately signals to the buyer that this is not a transaction for me. This is about their life, and I'm here to help them build it. That shift from agent to trusted advisor happens in the first 5 minutes of the consultation. And it happens because I start talking about them, not about me. Here are the kind of questions I ask in the dream home form stage. Tell me about your ideal home. If you could design exactly the way you want, what does it look like? What is the one thing about your current living situation that you most want changed? What does the perfect neighborhood feel like to you? What matters most about where you live? What are the absolute must-haves, the things that if a home doesn't have them, it's an automatic no? And what are the things that would be nice but you could live without? These questions do 2 things at once. They give me genuinely useful information about what to search for, and they start the emotional process of the buyer envisioning their new life. When someone is dreaming, they are engaged. When they are engaged, they are invested. And when they're invested, they are far more likely to commit to working with you through the end of the process. Start every buyer consultation by talking about the buyer, not about you, not about the market, not about the process. The buyer. That is the foundation that everything else in this consultation is built on. The second stage is the education phase. And this is where most buyer consultations either earn a committed client or lose one. Because here's what happens to buyers who are not properly educated about the home buying process. They get surprised. And surprised buyers get scared. And scared buyers either back out or they blame their agent. Your job in the education phase is to make sure there are no surprises. Every step, every cost, every contingency, explain clearly and simply before we ever make an offer. Here is how I approach the education phase. And I want to share this specific approach because I think it is more effective than most agents realize. I use the contract as my teaching tool, not to overwhelm the buyer with legal language, but to walk them through the main components of a real offer in simple, plain terms. Because when a buyer understands what they are agreeing to before they agree to it, they feel confident instead of anxious. Here are the main areas I cover in the education phase. Earnest money. I explain what earnest money is, a good faith deposit that demonstrates the buyer is serious about the purchase. How much is typical, when it is paid, what happens to it if the deal closes, and what happens to it under different circumstances. Buyers are often anxious about the earnest money because they do not fully understand when they can and cannot get it back. Explain this clearly upfront removes the anxiety before it becomes a problem. The inspection contingency. I explain what the inspection period is, what it covers, and what options the buyer has after the inspection is complete. I talk about the cost of the inspection so there's no sticker shock when the inspector sends their invoice, and I explain what is normal to find in an inspection versus what would be a genuine red flag. Because buyers who have never been through an inspection often panic at a report that an experienced agent will consider routine. Setting that expectation in advance keeps the deal alive when the inspection comes in. The appraisal contingency. I explain what an appraisal is, why lenders require it, and what happens if the home praises below purchase price. This is one of the most commonly misunderstood parts of the buying process, and one of the most common sources of deals falling apart. The buyer who understands the appraisal contingency before they are in the middle of it is a buyer who can make a calm, informed decision when it matters. The loan contingency. I explain what the loan contingency protects, the buyer's ability to back out of the contract without penalty if their financing falls through. I talk about what a pre-approval means versus final loan approval. And I explain what behaviors like making large purchases or changing jobs during the transaction can jeopardize financing. Down payment and closing costs. This is often the area our buyers are least prepared for. Not just the down payment, but all the additional costs that come at closing. I walk buyers through what closing costs typically include: lender fees, title fees, prepaid expenses, escrow fees, and give them a realistic range of what to budget. I also talk about strategies for reducing these costs, like negotiating seller concessions, so buyers understand they have options. By the end of the education phase, the buyer should feel genuinely informed, not overwhelmed, not scared, informed. Like someone who now understands a process that felt mysterious before and who trusts the person who explained it to them. That trust is what converts an interested buyer into a committed one. The third stage is where you lay out your commitment to the buyer, your value proposition. And I want to be very intentional about the order here. You communicate your value before you ask for their commitment, not after, not during, before. Because asking a buyer to sign a buyer broker agreement before they understand what they're getting from you is like asking someone to pay for a meal before they see the menu. You have to show them the value first. So in this stage, I'm very clear and very specific about what I'm going to do for the buyer from now until closing. Not generic claims like, I will work hard for you or I have your best interests at heart. Specific commitments, real actions, tangible things they are getting by choosing me. Here's the kind of language I use in this stage. Here's what I want you to know about what I'm committing to you as your agent. I'm going to switch the entire market, not just the MLS, to find every property that fits what you told me you're looking for, including off-market opportunities. When we find the right home, I'm going to negotiate on your behalf with everything I have. My goal is to always get the best possible price and terms, not just get the deal done. I'm going to be available to you, not just during the business hours. If you have a question, a concern, or something that comes up on the weekends, I am reachable. I'm going to communicate with you consistently throughout this process so you have never left wondering what is happening or what comes next. And I'm going to advocate to you at every step the way I would want someone to advocate for me or for someone I love. That level specifically, those concrete commitments, is what makes a buyer feel like they are choosing a partner, not just hiring a service. And when a buyer feels that, when they can see and feel you genuinely invest in their outcome, asking for their commitment at the end of the stage is not awkward. It is natural. It is the next logical step in conversation that has been building toward it. The fourth stage is where you introduce the buyer broker agreement and ask for the commitment. And I want to be addressed this directly because I know that this stage, this is where a lot of agents get uncomfortable. They feel awkward asking a buyer to sign an agreement. They worry it will feel pushy. Here's the reframe I want you to carry into this conversation. If you have run the first three stages well, the buyer broker agreement is not a demand. It's a natural formalization of a relationship that has already been built. The buyer already trusts you. They already understand what you are going to do for them. This agreement is simply both parties saying, yes, we are in this together. Here's how I introduce it. Before we start looking at homes together, I want to make sure we are on the same page and about how we are going to work together. This is a buyer broker agreement. It is essentially a partnership agreement between us. What it says is that I'm committing to represent you exclusively, and in exchange, you're committing to work with me as your agent. This protects both of us. It means I'm fully invested in finding you the right home, and you have an agent who is fully accountable to you. Then I walk them through the agreement simply and clearly, explaining each section in plain language. The same way I walk them through the contract in the education phase. Now, there's one more thing I always cover in this stage that is critical and important in today's market. I educate the buyer on what to do if they walk into a new build or an open house without me. This is something most agents forget, and it can cost you a client even after the agreement is signed. I tell every buyer clearly, if you ever walk into a new build community or an open house without me, very first thing you say to anyone is that you are represented by a buyer's agent. Give them my name and my contact information. Do not sign anything. Do not fill out any registration cards without my name on them. The builder's agent and the listing agent at the open house represent the seller, not you. I'm the one who represents you. Make sure that is clear from the moment you walk in. That education delivered clearly before they ever step foot in the new build or an open house protects your relationship and your commission from the moment the agreement is signed. Do not skip it. Now here's the bonus step, and this is the one that separates good buyer consultations from great ones. Once the buyer broker agreement is signed, once the commitment is made, I drop what I call the referral nugget. And the timing is intentional. I wait until after the agreement is signed because that is the moment the buyer is fully committed to working with me. They are invested, they are excited, they are in the process. And that is the perfect moment to plant a referral seed. Naturally, warmly, without any pressure. Here is how I do it. Before we wrap up today, I just want to say something. The way I grow my business is almost entirely through referrals from people I've had the privilege of helping. So if at any point during this process or after we get into your new home, you know anyone who's thinking about buying or selling, I'd be so grateful you keep me in mind. You don't have to wait until we are done. If something comes up tomorrow and you know someone who needs help, please do not hesitate to send them my way. That is it. Simple, genuine, completely natural in the context of what just happened. Here's why this works so well at this specific moment. The buyer just made a commitment to you. They are feeling good about that decision. When you ask for referrals in that moment, you're asking someone who is already sold on you. Not a cold ask, a warm one. And the buyers who hear that referral nugget early in the relationship before they have ever seen a home are primed to think of you when the real estate conversations come up in their world because you asked them to, and you asked them at the exactly right moment. That one extra step, 60 seconds of the end of the consultation, can generate referral business from a client before you even show them their first house. Add it to every consultation every time. Here is a complete 4-stage buyer consultation system that converts interested buyers into committed clients. Stage 1, the dream home form. Start with the buyer, not the budget, not the logistics, the dream. Ask genuine questions about what they want their life to look like. Set the tone that this is about them, not about you. Stage 2, this is the education phase. Walk them through the buying process using the contract as your guide. Cover earnest money, inspections, appraisals, loan contingency, down payments, and closing costs. Eliminate every surprise before it happens. Informed buyers are confident buyers. Stage 3, your commitment to the buyer. Lay out specifically what you're going to do for them, real commitments, concrete actions. Show them your value before you ask for theirs. Stage 4, the buyer broker agreement. Introduce the agreement as a natural next step, a formalization of the relationship you've already built. Walk them through it clearly. Educate them on what to do at new builds and open houses without you. Get the signature. And then the bonus, the referral nugget. Drop it immediately after the agreement is signed. Plant the seed at the moment they are committed to you. Keep it warm, genuine, and brief. That is a system, 4 stages plus 1 bonus step. Run it consistently and your buyer conversion rate will change. If you're a real estate agent who wants to sharpen your buyer consultation, or if you are new and you want to build the right habits from the beginning, I want to help you get there. The buyer consultation is one of the things I coach agents on my team through directly because I know how much of a difference a strong buyer consultation makes to your conversion rate and your business. I do one-on-one Zoom calls with agents who want to talk through their process, refine their approach, and build a consultation that actually converts. No pitch, no pressure, just a real conversation about how to get better at one of the most important skills in this business. The link to book directly in my calendar is in the description below. Takes about 30 seconds to book a time that works for you. And this video gave you a system you can run with your very next buyer. Subscribe to this channel. I post content every week for real estate agents who want to get better at the skills that actually drive results. I'm Scott Kumler. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.